and then eventually the NFL. But there's also an NHL. Now, some of you can remember those initials, but many of us are forgetting how vibrant they are because we're seeing a lot of reruns. You know, like the Masters tournament, and things like, oh gosh, I don't know, the playoffs, the Stanley Cup. Hold on a second. We're going to get this squared away. Hello, everybody. We're back. That was Duez. I think he's trying to get in touch with us here. Let me send him a little bit of a message. You'll see me actually send him a message. But we'll keep talking. We're going to work out the technology as we move along here. Let's see. Let's go. Coach, what's up? No worries. No worries at all. Okay. Coach Henderson, bringing it back. All right, so there we are. He'll be back with us shortly. So we'll be talking about that. But as we wait for that, let's continue to talk about the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. Lots of interesting things happening with them. Let's start off with a report from my friend and colleague out there, Pete Blackburn for CBS Sports. And Pete talks about, along with his network of folks, he has a headline that was kind of funny. The NBA is going to Disney World. Well, you know, that's the NFL's thing, right? Super Bowl. Where are you going to go after you win the Super Bowl? I'm going to Disney World. Well, in this case, the NBA might actually be going to Disney World. And not necessarily to go into the park. They may be using the athletic facilities at the Disney World sports facilities. The AAU tournaments, the national AAU tournaments for the different age groups, goes down there. They've got 10 gyms, courts in a row down there for great tournaments. Well, they've got the space, they've got the venues to house the teams. Now it's a matter of strategy and process and how to bring those teams together, qualify who should go down to have a tournament, and try to reenact in a real way some semblance of a competitive process known as the NBA playoffs and NBA finals. Well, they're attempting to do that. And part of the things that they're thinking about doing is starting sometime in late May or June to get this whole thing going. My first reaction is, what? I don't get it. What that means. Is it even possible? Well, here's their strategy and the plans that they have for doing this. They're going to bring it down to Disney World in the venues near around Kissimmee and Orlando, in that area, and using the Orlando Magic facilities as well as the Disney facilities to bring in ABC Sports and ESPN into the whole fray of things. They haven't quite figured out the mix of things as far as how do we come up with the teams that will qualify for this. Now, that being said, just know that going to Disney might be something that will happen with the NBA and creating an NBA tournament environment down in Florida. Now, as I think about that, and as I read Pete's words, I'm thinking, what about the WNBA? We've got two genders involved in a major competitive sport like basketball. Why not focus on both and hopefully bring them both into the scenario of fixing their competitive urges and desires to go out and compete, and in the NBA's case, finish a season. In the WNBA's case, maybe start and then finish a season. Well, that being said, let's move on to the Major League Baseball. They're looking at 10 team divisions, 3 of them, to be able to process this year's baseball season in a different way, but still end up with a World Series energy and attitude. Well, let's see what happens. We're getting there with them, and we'll see what they can do to make that happen. But here's their plan. Now, they have a plan. And they'll have facilities once they have a plan, because we can still go to those places. Now, again, that's a question about whether or not we shrink the curve, flatten the curve, get to a place where the government, both state, local, and nationally, agree to opening up the regulations. I hesitate to even say law, because right now we're embroiled in, do we wear a mask or don't we wear a mask? And for me, let me see if I bring it. Yeah, I did. Here it is. It's in this pocket. There's my mask. Now, I'm not wearing it inside, but if I did, this is what I would look like. All right. I'm not a big mask fan, but I will comply for the safety of others as well as myself in those spaces where I need to be socially distanced and protect. But now back to the Major League Baseball situation. They're going to look at 10 team divisions with the end result of their process is a 12-team playoff. They anticipate that this will begin in July, the season, I mean, and that they will finish somewhat on time, but it will remove the American League, National League identities. It will just be 10 teams by geography in those three areas, in those three divisions. And then you'll come out with whoever are the final two teams. And there's Duez. Good to have you back.
We're good now.
All right, so hang with me. We're going through some sports things. We're finishing up, Duez, with kind of what's in line with our theme today, which is, making plans for future expectations. And one of the things that's happening is the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB are all making plans for future expectations of a competitive season. We'll wait and see if that happens. And the Major League Baseball, they're looking at 10-team divisions, 3 divisions in 3 locations around the country. Now, if you're a baseball fan like me, I'm not so sure that it's going to rise up to the competitive level I expect it to. But at least they're trying. And I'm open to error, and I'm open to miscues, because it's the game. Honor the game. Help the players and be out there for them. Well, Major League Baseball is going to try to do that and finish somewhere on time, I guess. It'll wind up with a 12-team playoffs. And as I said, there's no distinction between American League and National League. Just baseball players playing baseball. Now, that being said, here's the NHL's plan. This is aggressive. They are going to they're gonna make it work. And even if they don't have fans in the early part of their development in the stadium, they're still going to try to have a Stanley Cup. And they're targeting June and early July. That's insane, because that will then spread into what would be normally the beginning of their next season. So can you imagine this? As a hockey player, you're finishing, you've got the Stanley Cup raised above your head, and the manager's tapping you on the shoulder and saying, excuse me, you got to go to practice, because we're getting ready for the 2021 season. It's going to be insane. But I guess, you know what? That's what movies are made of. So we'll find out what's going on. So I'll end with a small note with the NFL football and the Dallas Cowboys. What a great place to end, right? Dallas Cowboys franchise. Yeah, the size of them. And the new coach, McCarthy, he's putting it up against the ownership. He's throwing truth against power, and he's getting what he wants. The way he's recruiting, setting up a new staff, it's his way or the highway, I guess. And I guess it'll only be the highway if he loses, according to Jerry Jones.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to have that mantra and be able to express that, right? You would have to have a history of winning, which obviously he does. There's not a rookie 33-year-old coach walking in and saying it's my way or the highway.
Well, and Pete, my guy at CBS Sports,
back that up.
Pete Blackburn said exactly what you just said. He said it's one Titan versus another. One is a Titan on the field as a coach. The other one's a Titan in the owner's box. And until one figuratively and literally drops the ball, change won't happen. And so he's going to get his way. He is getting his way. And he's forcing the talent to produce. And I think that's a great way to bring you in, Duez, because I'm interested in how coaches are motivating players and making plans to compete given the circumstances that we're facing. So before you answer that, let me just tell our audience that number 23, fellow Hawkeye, started his career in basketball, well, before 1998, but that was when he started your college career, 1998 to 2002. And then you jumped over to Germany, so Guten Tag, die Gates, for about 5 or 6 years, playing over there in the European ball. But you played for the USC Leipzig, sorry, pronouncing it properly, USC Leipzig, and that's kind of a developmental group. Did you get involved in coaching there?
So that was toward as I was finishing up my time over there, and the general manager of the team had actually been the coach of the team that I played against for a few years, and he knew I had some aspirations of getting into coaching, and we agreed upon me coming over to Leipzig with the agreement that, hey, let's have you play one more year if that's what you want to do or more, but then also let's start grooming you for a head coaching role. And kind of the development of how that happened, and that's what led me to going back that following year as head coach.
So with that being said, I want to remind our audience that the motivational moment this week is a quote from Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a survivor of the Holocaust and the concentration camps. And it seems fitting in this dramatic times of health emergency that this quote fits. At any moment, man must decide, for better or for worse, what will be the monument of his existence. I'll add her existence, his or her existence. So Frankl speaks directly to the, not desperation, but just there are desperate times and urgencies that push us that we don't control. How do we step up? So, Duez, what are you doing to motivate yourself and motivate others that are part of your team to have that existence, that monumental existence, to move forward?
Yeah, so I think there are, I've thought about this over the past basically 2 months that we're in right now, and I think a lot of it has to do with keeping things as regular as possible. They're not regular, but you can make them as regular as possible. Also, recognizing that we are at different times, that things do need to be, sometimes turned on their head and figuring out what to do. And then also routine within that, right? So I call it 3 R's. It's recognizing it, it's keeping things regular, and it's keeping it with a routine. That's the way I'm attacking it as a husband, as a father, as a coach, and also as an athlete myself, still, because I still work out, daily and those kind of things. Hey, no one planned for this, no one asked for it, no one knew it was coming, and now it's here. If you're focused on all the wrong things with things,
Well, and Duez, I compliment you on your 3 R's. I want to recommend that everybody kind of take that in context for today's discussion, because Duez, I think you have a video that you should be making on the garage workouts by Duez Henderson, and constantly keep them fast paced. It just keeps my attention to watch you do the bell movement with your workout weights, and then the kids are running behind you. I think that's epic to capture the time, but all at the same time, capture your 3 R's, regular and routine in particular. So with that being said, are there any things about what you're learning through these last couple of months that are going to become a habit, a standard for you going forward? Well, as I show you behind me, Duez is not there. He may be able to hear us, but I'm gonna go through a couple of things while we wait for him to get back with us. Duez is his wife, Randy, is the head coach of the Washington University St. Louis women's basketball team, and Duez has a history of 3 or 4 years of working with the ball team, but it's only been the last couple of years that he has taken on a full-time position. And in fact, this is his second season as a full-time coach with the Washington University St. Louis women's basketball team. Now, understand that Duez has a very successful collegiate career at the University of Iowa, as well as a European basketball history. Now, Duez, help my audience understand kind of the full spectrum of you. Your kids are how old?
Yeah, so Harper, our oldest daughter, is 3.5, and our son Ezekiel, or Zeke that we call him, is 2.5.
And you've known Randy before you guys got married. You knew her as a college coach at other universities, correct?
Right. So, interesting story. Randy and I, we both played at the University. Say 2 words to each other at the time. We crossed over by 3 years. I knew of her, she knew of me, but outside of the general pleasantries of hi as you're passing down the tunnel, we never said anything to each other. Fast forward 12 years after we graduated, ironically, we are playing at a charity basketball game at the University of Iowa. I'm at one end of the floor warming up and kind of look down at the other end by the tunnel. Who was that walking in? Turns out it was Randy. We actually ended up, I didn't know this at the time, but we ended up being on the same team for the charity game there. And to this day, I mean, she tells me that the only thing she could get that day was offensive rebound. That's why she scored so many points, because she just concentrated. This market. But no, yeah.
Well, as we say in the football, my football players, I tell them when they've met the love of their life and they extend that love into a lifetime of working together, is they outkick their coverage. And I think with your story, you gave me an example of, once again, you outkicked your coverage. As I will say to the audience, in your defense, you're a great team. You've created a great team, and you will have another great team in the years to come with the kids. As you know, I've been following your career just before you got on the Iowa team, because I was in and involved with the Iowa coaching staff back then and helped in just examining, never meeting you, but helped in the recruiting process and going through what coaches do to evaluate players. And the one thing I'll share with you, Duez, about that recruiting conversation was their concern about, will this kid give the ball up and play with the team? And I think the answer is yes. You've done quite well. You've matured into being a great team player. That's a little tongue-in-cheek, by the way. They couldn't have won NCAA or Big Ten championships in Iowa without your being able to play as a team. Now, that's also my way of Duez setting this up for my next question, because, being aware during times of urgency is an important component to success and matching the competition and the obstacles you face. What are some things you're sharing with your players about being aware, being more heightened in your awareness about the circumstances so they can get the best and most out of their circumstances to date? Well, as we get Duez back for his answer, let me just share with you guys that we are constantly aware of how to stay protected, how to stay safe, how to stay clean and healthy. Well, one of those things that I've done over the years is present to you a program and a product called AvCare. It's a germicidal non-alcohol lotion. This is my infomercial. Well, I've got something special for you. If you write this down, 360 PERF, that's for the show, 360 PERF. You write that down as your code, go to the AvCare website, and you can get a discount on 3-ply face masks, germicidal hand lotion, and hard surface disinfectant called the Waltz product line. And that's because of my relationship with AvCare. For you, from me. So that's 360 PERF, and go to the AvCare website and the Shopify link. That's at avkare.com, avcare.com, and check out their 3-ply mask. So, Duez, what would be your answer to how are you asking your players to be aware? What are some of the strategies you're asking them? And I'm guessing it's going to be kind of wrapped with your 3 R's. But what are some specific things that you're sharing with them to, and maybe player by player, because each player is a little different.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Can you repeat that?
Just share with me what you are sharing with your players about strategy for being more heightenedly aware and focused on staying productive every day.
Under optimal conditions. It's all about finding a way in whatever area that is, right? It's a total adjustment. There's not going to be you're not going to sit down and design the perfect the way has been something that we've really tried to hammer home over this.
So, Duez, what is your administrators saying, athletic directors and other coaches sharing with you about their plans for, wearing a mask, social distancing? I mean, basketball is a contact sport. How is that going to change, if at all? And if it does change, how are you as a coach going to adapt to get the X's and O's kind of retained and engaged?
Yeah, that's a great question, Well, right? No one right now trying to figure out, hey, what is that going to be? How do we travel? How do fans, what's going to be the fan experience at these events? And then as coaches, right, as leaders of organizations, how does it look different, when sports do come back?
Well, and you've got a camp experience that you're going to be dealing with as well. Are you making adjustments to that, or are you going to have camps this summer?
Yeah, so we as a university, all non
So the university said all non-essentials?
No events period, no camps, no academic immersions, no pre-registrations or pre or early orientation. August 1st is the day that we began about 8 days ago for university leadership.
So are you then? You still have your business of your club sports. How does that play into that whole strategy?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, we're following those same guidelines. I don't know for August 1st, and to be quite honest, in my personal opinion, I think it will be well after August 1st.
Yeah. So with that reality, then are you finding any frustrations or, God forbid, any depression from players and recruits that you have on your club team or the Washington University team? How are they dealing with their emotions? Because I talk about that all the time with athletes.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it, right? Luckily, at the university level, we have a lot of different resources that are available to our student athletes, and to be frank, us as employees as well, because that's a big piece of it, right? So I think our jobs as coaches is to, one, make sure that our players understand that any emotional impact that they're having, be able to support our players through it. And three, also understanding that it's not our job necessarily to dig in and get to the root of it. A lot of it is making sure that they understand they have the right resources, right? There's a lot of trained professionals on our campus that are there for that reason. And us being able to direct our student athletes to theirs is a huge deal.
So, Duez, are you doing some of the creative things as a coach with let's have a pizza party, let's do a dance marathon together, just from that camaraderie and team solidarity point of view? Are you doing some of those kind of creative things as a coach?
Yeah. So right now, a lot of it we have definitely had a lot more Zoom meetings than anticipated, as the rest of the world.
Yeah.
We've had 2 or 3 team meetings where we are, some of them are more heavy basketball stuff. Some of it is more a connection, culture. What are you guys doing to stay connected? Hey, here's some ideas. But the main thing, I mean, one of the big things is, and I think, there's probably coaches out there on either side of the line with this. Like basketball is pretty low on the players list right now.
Yeah.
Our students, they were in the middle of spring break when the decision not to bring students back to campus was made. They were all over the world, to be frank, and it was, hey, what's going on? How am I going to get my stuff? And then you have, especially this year, it was really interesting. We were a freshman heavy team. We had 9 freshmen on our roster.
Oh my goodness.
So their freshman year is being disrupted in a major trying to figure out, what's new. I put myself in their shoes, and I take it and I say, hey, my freshman year when I, after a semester and a half of college where I, felt like I was this great adult and ready to take the world, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks later I'm back home living in my parents' house and it feels like high school again, right? I mean, just that piece of it is very interesting. And with us, we have, we talked about finding a way. We're trying to be very aware of the circumstances that these girls are dealing with, right? On our team, we have players from small towns of under 2,000 people in Illinois, all the way to, one of our freshmen lives in literally the middle of downtown Manhattan. So, one player is talking about she'd go out in her driveway and shoot and do her ball handle. That if you're living in the middle of Manhattan, what does that look like? So just being aware of that, I say it's low on the list, but the expectation to get work done, to get better, to stay in physical shape, that expectation is still there. But we also have to kind of pull back the reins in our expectations of what exactly or how much exactly basketball is occupying of our players' minds right now.
Let me share some things with you on that note about a mantra, if you will, that I recommend to the athletes that I've spoken with, both from the amateur to the pro ranks. and that is think, breathe, eye contact, listen, and repeat. Think, breathe, eye contact, listen, and repeat. And it's an activity of just visual and auditory sensory involvement, so that you know you're engaged because you're thinking like it. The person you're working with knows you're engaged, so there's a connection there. But in these times, the preponderance for depression based on frustration or even perhaps even anger is heightened, because there's so many things I thought I used to control that I don't get to control anymore. So what I then said to myself, oh, well, wait, that's kind of long. I need to give people a mantra. So the mantra I've created is from a quote of an anonymous quote that it's recognizing a degree or level of pain or discomfort. And when you recognize that, you say, I am in pain, but the pain is not me. I am in pain, but the pain is not me. The minute you start mantraing that in your head, or even out loud for that matter, you don't feel the pain. The discomfort goes away. So for you, it may be less likely that you would rely on a mantra because you got two little bodies running around, grabbing your legs, doing handstands against the wall, making creative things happen in the garage while you're trying to work out. So you're already distracted with the mantra of movement. But with players that are typically interested in competing at the highest level and excelling at specific tasks, and then those things are taken away, you need to be in control of your own senses, your own five senses. And that's where we talk about skill set. And that's what we've been doing, is talking about where does the mind go? How does it make me respond at a cellular level with my skills of breathing, seeing, feeling, tasting, and listening? And that's where I come up with those mantras. And I hope that will be helpful for you and your players. So with that being said, let me ask you about environment. Now, obviously, you're at home, garage, yard, very limited movement here and there. But what's it going to be like, Duez, when you get back in the gym? Is there going to be any retraining? Is there going to be, I'm going to lay on the floor and just kind of hug it and smell the smells? What are you going to do?
All of the above, right? It's funny. Just with the whole being at home and being limited in where you can go, it's been interesting just to see, the things that you get back in touch with, right? Like we were out playing in front of the house the other day, and both our kids are running around with basketballs, and I grabbed one of them, and I'm not used to dribbling the ball on the concrete, right? It's a nice, polished, pine floor with 3 inches of cushion, and nice painted lines, but just that sound of it, right? It took me back. We would see, who could dribble walk the ball between their legs from one corner of our block to the other corner, right? With no mistakes. And if you messed up, you didn't get to go again. It was the next person's chance. And the first person who won was the winner. Like, that was a game that took an hour and a half sometimes.
Yeah.
2 or 3 hours we'd be just dribbling a basketball. And that's something that you kind of just take for granted because everything is in the gym. You have all these things at your disposal. So I needed that to remind me. But you look at these athletes who are 16, 17, up to college juniors and seniors at 22, 23, whatever it may be. Like, they've never experienced that, right? Like, they don't know what it was, right? I think part of it is the way I grew up versus some of the things I've been exposed to now. But when someone said they had a court in their backyard when I was growing up, that means someone had found an old rim and nailed it to the top of the garage. And you better not try to down it because you're going to pull it down and it's going to be broken, right? And now you look at, these, people who say they have a court in their backyard, and it's sport court, and it's painted with the local college team's logo, and it's goal center rim. Like, it's just different, right? So I think, not having anything to draw back from when you don't have all those resources at your hand, I think that could really mess with the psyche because you don't have anything to pull back from. It's, what do I do now? Well, you go and figure it out. That's what we did.
I think you've defined the first week of your getting back together as a team on campus by actually smelling the hardwood, hugging the basketball close enough to get the smell of the leather and the feel of the texture. That you make it a group activity to reacclimate yourself to what we hadn't been part of, and make that as a part of the team effort to appreciate one another. After obviously all the hugs and the welcomes and all that goes away, but as I say this tongue in cheek, it's also part of a reality of processing what has gone on, the frustration and the angst and even maybe anger for some people in managing those emotions. And I had a guy the other day. He says, I love to jog, but jogging was becoming problematic. He said, so I sat in my bedroom on the floor just smelling my shoes. I went, whoa, that's a cellular level of getting back into the running when you can't run. But it made me think about what we're talking about now, is that bring yourself back in gradual ways so that when you're going to be asked to compete and address the obstacles of that competition, you're more than just ready because you've prepared. You've gotten yourself to your 3 R's, giving a sense of purpose to those 3 R's. Now, this is about the segment of the show called Mental Conditioning, where we talk about the influences of environment. Now, environment's one thing for the players, but what about the coaches? Are you concerned that you're going to get too amped up with a sense of urgency to catch up? That you're going to be, so you got to slow down, tamp it down a little bit, got to keep it in perspective. Any thoughts about that as a coach coming back?
Yeah, I'm typically a fairly excited guy.
But that's why I said it.
There's going to be a degree to that, but I think one of the main things you can do to head that off is to not get caught flat-footed, right? We're still preparing as we would be if our players are on campus. Yeah. We're preparing the same way that we would if we knew for sure we were going out on the road recruiting in July. With our incoming class, we're preparing them and sending them the same things that we would in a quote-unquote normal situation. So I think creating, again, that sense of normalcy, or keeping things back to the R's, right? Keeping things as regular as possible will be a great way to head that off.
Have you got any feedback from your other coaches in other sports? I know when I spoke with Coach Ducks, he said that you are what you are at your division. You don't have a lot of player contact anyway, so it's not extraordinarily out of the ordinary for that to happen. But at the same time, the recruiting process could be kind of challenging. So it sounds like, are you in the same boat that Ducks is in, that it is kind of status quo, just kind of the routine you've been used to anyway?
Yeah, exactly, right? With us, like a lot of our kind of preliminary work is done on film, right? So we're used to getting film submission. We're used to talking with high school coaches to get a feel for players before we invest the resources in seeing that player play live, right? I think at some of the higher levels where there's more resources available, you don't have to do as much homework. Not saying you don't do any, but like for us to spend a trip out to California to watch one player play, we got to make sure that we've done our homework leading up to that. And a lot of that homework that I speak of is your film study of watching a few complete games, talk with club coach, talking with high school coach, before you kind of jump in head first. So from that aspect, it's not much different. It becomes different when you get into July, when for 16 or 17 days you're on the road seeing these players play live in these larger tournaments. Now that's where it's going to feel different. But right now, again, I would say it's probably as status quo for us right now as it would be in a quote unquote normal situation.
Now, I know the answer to this question will have more meaning once you meet a player for the first time and see them play in competition at the college level, but I'm wondering what's going to happen with the removal of that live contact of a recruit during the summer tournaments being not there, and it's been replaced with more film, and now you go ahead and recruit them, and you go, you know what? I'm wondering why we would have had to go see her anyway. And it's so I'm wondering what part of the process that we've been used to for so many years is going to change permanently.
Yeah, that is very true. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. With my business background, my mind is constantly going, right? If I'm the CEO of a large company and I'm being effective for my employees working remotely, why am I paying for this big fancy building? I can give this person a $2,500 work from home stipend. Hey, go get a nice chair, go get a nice computer, set up what you need there. To be a physical contact and your meetings where you have people in place. But I'm sure there's a lot of people looking at this saying, hey, let's get through this because we don't know what we're in right now. But after it, let's take a hard look at how we operate, right? There are going to be, some enormous changes to everyday life, I think, that comes out of this pandemic, right? And you sit around and you try to guess, or you say, what if this, or what if that? Look at the travel industry after 9/11. Okay, hey, now you got to be at the airport X hours before. Now you can't take this through. What did that do for, I was sitting down, I was traveling one day, and I was talking to and he was actually one of the owners of it, and he said, you would not believe the positives, terrible situation, but the positives that came out of 9/11 for him as a business owner, with people having to be at the airport 2 hours before their flight, right? They're not going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs. They're going to sit there and eat. They're going to sit there and drink. They're going to spend money. So, that's just one small example. But I do think coming out of this, they may not be felt right away, but I think there will be some very, very big changes that come out of it.
So
Randy, my wife, and I, we were talking about the other day. I said, outside of the people that live in my house, the last time I had physical contact with them, and it was elbow tap with our soccer coach, our women's soccer coach at WashU. Like, I remember it, right? Because you just go back, right? And there's no other time anyone's gone 60 days without having physical contact with someone again, whether it's a handshake, whether it's a hug, whether it's exchanging money, whether it's a pat on the back. Like, that is that our new norm? Could be. Yeah.
I don't imagine we're going to be playing ball with those on, but it's possible, I suppose. Basketball is a contact sport without a lot of padding. But one of my questions, based on what you just mentioned, was if you had a choice, Duez, about saving money because of the pandemic related to your travel that you're not going to do during recruiting and taking that money and putting it into the team in some way, where would you spend those dollars first?
That's a great question, and that's something that we're working through right now. But I think, again, right, what will we be doing if we were on campus? Right? At the Division III level, postseason, there's not a lot that you can do, but there has been some kind of deregulating of some of the rules that prevented that. So we're definitely looking into, bringing in different speakers for different Zoom calls, different leadership type opportunity, leadership development opportunities, and just being creative with the way that we use those funds to still achieve the same goal.
Yeah, and I think we're going to, I'm going to let you in on some stuff. I've had conversations with administrators and head coaches and general managers at the pro level because they're all thinking of the same things, the movement of the money, because it didn't get spent here. And in some cases, at state-run organizations, it's kind of a use it or lose it budget mentality. And some of it can't be shifted. So they're talking about the how-tos. And then there's other organizations at the collegiate level where they can shift when it's not used in the category it was asked for. And they're finding out, interestingly enough, that they maybe didn't need to appropriate it that way, that it should have been shifted over here and spent in this area. Now, that being said, that's about the category of environments and adapting and adjusting. And I'm wondering what other kind of discussions are going to happen with administrators and their head coaches when there's a difference of opinion. Because there's going to be a new budget cycle coming shortly after the first of the year for most universities, and for sure in the spring and into the summer months next year. And the pandemic will be on their mind about how it influenced budgeting and sharing of dollars. Now, I don't want to belabor that point too much because I want to get into our last segment of the show, which is about performance results, and which is process. So we're talking about staying focused on the path. Well, the path has changed. It's gotten a little, to your analogy about hardwood versus concrete, where you're dribbling the ball. The surface has changed. It feels different. So are my processes different? And if they are, where are they changing, Duez? What processes may be changing for you as a coach?
I think a big part of is, like, we spoke a little bit on it earlier, right? Like, what do we do that's non-essential? What do we do because we have the time? What do we do because we have the funds to do it? How can we do it better? How can we be better stewards of those funds? How can we be better stewards of those times, right? 3 years from now, when, hopefully it's shorter, but, 3-4 years from now, when things are back to normal, and they have been for a while, do you decide to do a Zoom team meeting instead of bringing everyone in, right? Do you decide that, hey, our philosophy is going to be, we're recruiting through video and phone calls only, except in the month of July, right? Just kind of doing an inventory at, hey, that wasn't too bad. Well, we had to do it this way. If we do it that way, if we could save some time, if we could save some resources and reallocate those things, is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not, right? But just doing an inventory to see what makes sense and what's the best route to take.
Let me pick up on that inventory remark, because as you get into the season and it feels more comfortable, you're in the huddle, you're in practice, discussing, going through things, I'm wondering how much of process changes we made during the summer leading up to the season are going to alter our levels of awareness, our levels of sensitivity to certain behaviors that will be more beneficial. I come back to the skills segment I talk about with regard to our 5 senses. Will I be a better listener? Will I be more visually acute to seeing things and being more aware of anticipating things that are coming at me? Because I had to. I was pretty much relegated to my 5 senses. I'm sitting in my bedroom watching a movie, just me and the scene. And I have to be more proactive. Am I going to retain any of that and bring it into the processes going forward? Because I realized those could help me be a better coach, a better player. And so I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on that, bringing what I've learned from the pandemic from a process point of view and using it in what is going to be our new normal.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to that is just overall appreciation. Right? I think because sports play such a big role in our world, whether it's from the professional level all the way down to the youth level, where talking point that a lot of people connect on, regardless of status, regardless of location, right? Like sports brings us together. And I think there's been with me, a kind of a false sense of security. Like, I'm a basketball coach. There's always going to be basketball. There's always going to be practices. There's always going to be skill sessions. And that's blown up, right? You look at some of the smaller universities and colleges that are closing now, right? With coaching, everyone who shuts down the athletic department or who shuts down the country. I mean, those are, probably people in the same position I am, right? Like, I'm a basketball coach. There's always going to be, I'm winning here. I've had 15 winning seasons. I've been in 7 NCAA tournaments. Like, I'm always going to have a spot here, right? And that's been turned on its head. So I think, hey, I get to do a pretty damn good job, pretty fun job.
Yeah.
And also, I was shown that it can be taken away.
Well, I think that's a great word for today, Duez, appreciation, because it opens the door for lots of different layers of the onion to be peeled back. And to your point, it's about I'm only as good as my last hurrah, and I better keep looking for that and being aware of. And right now, because of the sense of urgency with the medical professionals I've talked to, is that they are looking at 5 feet in front of them because they have to. Their scope is going to be up. Bring your eyes up, bring it up a little bit. But it's scary for them to do that because they bring their eyes up. There's just one more death. There's one more urgent situation. They don't want to do that. Now that's a very extreme position. Some of them are doing it. They're distracting themselves with dance-a-thons in the halls of the surgical center. They're having great family members at home. I mean, at 8 o'clock at night now, I hear people screaming in my neighborhood, not in pain, but in celebration of their neighbors and friends. So appreciation is a great word. I'm going to add to that hustle and grit, because you still got to hustle. You still got to be aware of what your grit is all about, what you're made of, to move it forward so that you're not looking 5 feet, you're looking 50 feet ahead and maintaining that posture. So as a dad and as a partner, are you finding that there were times that you missed because you were a coach and now you're more appreciative of those moments? Because I've got some coaches and executives that are glad there was a pandemic because they reconnected with their family.
Yeah, and I like to think that I always try to keep it in mind. And that there's still responsibilities. There's things to take you away from home. There's things that must be done. So while it's been great to have, again, I think I'm more appreciative of the time here, but not from a sense of, oh, hey, this is what I'm missing out on. Yeah, like I try to be very conscious of what I'm missing out on and what I'm getting to do, because it helps to keep me balanced. It helps to keep me focused. So again, I know it's come up a couple of times, but just being appreciative of this time in an unfortunate situation.
As you know, Duez, there are lots of learners that need things to be repeated many, many times before they retain them. So appreciation is something worthwhile repeating. And I'm sure that with the people that I have in my life that you know and people that you have in your life that I know, we're going to get reminded a lot. And you've got a great ally and partner with Randy. And I regret that I haven't had a chance to meet her more often, but I'm sure in the future that will come about. But as we begin to close down today's show, I want to make sure everybody knows that Duez Henderson is a assistant basketball coach at University of Washington, St. Louis for women's basketball. His lovely partner in life and on the court is Randy Henderson, the head coach. By the way, I want to compliment her indirectly through you. Her resume is stout, brother. that is one talented young woman and basketball coach. I was looking at that over the last few weeks. I'm going, whoa, that boy really did outkick his coverage. That is just amazing. And so to have
don't,
that.
Don't remind me. I tell myself that. Okay.
And let me tell you something else too that you already know, that you do a great job of being a dad and a partner for just the things you put on social media and what it shows about who you are. So don't ever forget that, but also don't ever forget there's always more to do. There's always more moments that you wish you had more of. And as I say that, and we're closing down, I want to remind everybody that next week we're going to have Jeff Jensen, who to me is the country's leader in teamwork. Jeff Jensen is a writer and author of technique and strategies on how to be a great leader in athletics. His programs are all over the NCAA sports world at the collegiate level. Jeff's been a friend and colleague for years, and he's going to be on the show talking about leaders and strategies leaders can use to not only deal with the pandemic, but to interact with one another. It's like team captain leadership. What do you tell a team captain now when you had this situation? And how do you select a team captain? It might be different because there's a different person who's better at responding to what the situations we have today. So Jeff's going to talk to us next week about being a team captain. And then I'm really excited about this month in general. We're going to talk to Vin McCaffrey on the 22nd of May. Vin has designed an educational software piece that colleges and pro teams have adapted to share knowledge about how to get a job, how to be financially responsible if you're a pro. On the college level, it's how to be a better planner with your course curriculum. Well, with today's situations, planning is a big deal. And then lastly, Durez, I want to ask you for your words that you want to share, the takeaways you want to give people for today regarding what you said about setting expectation for future plans and having those 3 R's and the appreciation. What do you want to share with people in closing?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that it's going to pass. You do what you can in the moment to make sure that it impacts you as minimally as possible. Support the people around you, because at the end of the day, that's what we have.
I greatly appreciate Durez Anderson's time with us today. Brother, you're a good man to be a friend of. I thank you so much for that opportunity. I
appreciate it.
Have a great day, and my best to Randy and the family. We'll be talking soon.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.